Most sellers using AI for product research are doing one specific thing wrong, and it's not the tool they're choosing or the niche they're targeting. They're handing the AI a question it was never designed to answer, and it responds with something confident, specific, and quietly made up. The three-layer pipeline that actually works separates what AI is genuinely good at from what it will convincingly fake when you push it. And the difference between those two modes isn't obvious until a sourcing decision goes sideways and you trace it back to a number nobody actually verified. The failure isn't dramatic, there's no error message, no warning, no hesitation in the output. You ask for estimated monthly search volume on a niche keyword and you get a clean figure with 2 decimal places. That number feels like research, but it's the model pattern matching against everything it was trained on and producing the most plausible sounding answer it can construct. Ask yourself, have you ever cross-checked a figure the AI gave you against an actual data source? The sellers who haven't are moving faster now, but they're accelerating toward the same bad bets they were always making. A product research session that used to consume your entire day now fits comfortably inside an afternoon, and that shift is real. But the part that shrank wasn't the hard part, it was the gathering, the pulling of data from a dozen different places into one coherent picture. The deciding half where you weigh risk and read the market and make a call with incomplete information, that half didn't move at all. What changed is the shape of the work, not the nature of it, and that distinction matters more than most sellers realize. Speed creates a particular kind of illusion. When the research arrives faster, it starts to feel like the conclusion arrived too. Sellers who treat a fast output as a finished verdict aren't saving time. They're just making the same misjudgments at a higher pace. So what actually got faster and what's the pipeline that made it happen? The chain starts with demand, and demand has a first-party source most sellers underuse. Amazon isn't guessing at what its shoppers want. It's watching every search, every click, and every purchase in real time. Product Opportunity Explorer is where that data surfaces, and it's the reason this pipeline starts here and nowhere else. Every other research tool you've ever used is reconstructing Amazon's behavior from the outside, scraping and inferring and estimating. POE is the actual ledger, real search volume, real purchase rates, real conversion gaps, pulled from the platform itself. It clusters that behavior into niches, groupings of searches that share buying intent, and then it flags where demand is running ahead of satisfaction. When a niche shows strong search volume but conversion sitting below benchmark, that's Amazon telling you shoppers are looking and not finding what they want. That gap is the signal the whole pipeline is built to chase. The honest caveat is that POE access depends on your seller account standing, and its view stops at the demand side of the equation. It can show you what shoppers want with remarkable precision, but it cannot tell you how many sellers are already lined up to give it to them. Amazon's Product Opportunity Explorer tells you where demand lives, but it won't tell you how crowded the room already is. That's the job of a research suite. Helium 10, Jungle Scout, Seller Sprite, and their equivalents all exist to answer one question. How many sellers are already eating from this trough? You filter by revenue range, review count, and listing age, and a saturated niche starts to separate from an open one. The numbers these tools produce are estimates, reverse engineered from public rank data, and treating them as P&L inputs is how sellers build a business case on a guess. Use them as a directional range instead, not this product earns $4,000 a month, but products in this band are earning somewhere in this neighborhood. That reframe turns the entire layer from an oracle into a filter, which is exactly what it should be. But here's the pressure this layer can't relieve on its own. If your niche definition is too broad, both datasets are already compromised. A search term like kitchen storage averages 1,000 different buyer intents into one number, and that number tells you almost nothing useful about any single opportunity inside it. The data from both layers is only as honest as the niche you fed into them. Search yoga mats and you're looking at a category so wide that the signals from 1,000 different buyers collapse into one useless blur. Search extra thick non-slip travel yoga mat, and suddenly the demand curve, the competitor count, and the review gaps are all pointing at the same customer. That precision isn't just tidier, it's the difference between data that guides you and data that misleads you. Once your niche is tight enough, you can run what's called the gap versus race diagnostic on what you've gathered. Rising search volume against a flat product count is a gap. Demand is outrunning supply and there's space to enter. Both numbers climbing fast together means you're looking at a race that started without you. Most sellers who rush into a crowded market didn't ignore the data, they just asked the wrong question of it. A confirmed gap tells you the market exists, but it says nothing yet about whether you can actually make money there. Demand validation feels like the finish line, but it's actually the halfway point. A growing niche with real search volume can still be a trap if the numbers behind it don't work. Run the unit economics before you source a single sample, not after you've already committed. Pull the landed cost estimate, stack the FBA fees against your target price, and model ad spend at a realistic ACOS for that category. What you're left with is a margin range, and that range either supports a business or it doesn't. The sellers who skip this step don't fail at sourcing. They fail at math they could have done in an afternoon. A validated demand gap tells you people want something. It tells you nothing about whether you can deliver it profitably. Returns, storage fees, and seasonal rank decay can erase a margin that looked fine on paper. So before the pipeline hands you a verdict, you need one more layer. A tool that pulls all of this evidence together and forces the question you actually have to answer. You've got demand signals from Opportunity Explorer and a competitive density read from your research tool. So now what do you actually do with all of it? This is where an LLM earns its place in the pipeline, not as an oracle, but as a compression engine that turns a wall of data into a structured brief. Feed it your review exports, your keyword volumes, your margin math, and ask it to surface the clearest go, no-go argument the evidence supports. What it does well is pattern recognition across more inputs than you can hold in your head at one time. What it does badly is fill gaps, and when it fills gaps, it doesn't say, I'm guessing. It says, the average return rate in this category is 14.3% with complete unearned confidence. That invented number sounds like research, and that's exactly what makes it dangerous. Vague prompts are the trigger. The less evidence you give the model, the more it fabricates to compensate. So the operating rule is simple. Feed it evidence, never ask it to be the evidence. Even a flawless brief still lands on your desk with one question the pipeline never answers. Is this the bet you want to make? Every seller running this pipeline is pulling from the same Amazon data, the same competitor counts, the same LLM synthesis. When everyone filters for low competition and rising demand, they converge on the same pockets. And those pockets stop being hidden the moment the second seller finds them. Low competition usually means low demand, not overlooked demand. And that distinction is the one the tools won't make for you. The real edge isn't the pipeline, it's the question you think to ask that nobody else runs. POE hands you first-party demand signal, your research suite maps the competitive density, the LLM collapses it into a brief, and margin math either opens the gate or closes it. But every one of those layers is gathering, not deciding. AI compressed the research half of this process and left the judgment half completely intact. Sellers who treat a shortlist as a verdict aren't moving faster, they're just making the same mistakes at speed.